Or do we have a different speaker?
It's me a little bit louder. You're right, I'm sorry,
Because I don't know how, because we have a couple of don't make it sound like.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. These are working questions. It's not what you I would like to welcome everyone here to our annual Best of KWU, our showcase for the best in undergraduate research we've had over the last year. My name is Dr. Philip Meckley. I'm glad to have a chance to meet with you all. It will be very nice to get a chance to talk with you. You are not here to listen to me talk today. You are here to listen to the students talk. And I promise you, you will not be impressed. You will be overwhelmed You will be overwhelmed. I would like to give a shout out to everyone who made this possible. You gotta do shout outs. Okay, I want to shout out to administration and staff, KWU, for keeping this together every single year. I would like to thank the alumni whose constant interest in this has made it all possible. By the way, I've been asked to say to the alumni, if you like what you see, any generous checks would be accepted. Just write a 1 and keep adding zeros. We'll tell you when to stop. All right. Anyway, thank you to the alumni who have made this absolutely possible over the course of time. I would like to thank the family and friends of these students. Nobody does this on their own, and therefore, all the people who have supported these young people through this time matter. And we'd especially like to thank the family and friends for entrusting us with these people. It has been an honor and a privilege to work with them. Most importantly, I would like to thank the students themselves. They demonstrate excellence in academics, in professionalism, in character. They really are the best of KWU. All right, what I'd like to do is I would like to begin this alphabetically. There is no considered to be winning entry for the best of KWU. The comparisons of entries is too difficult. I would like to begin with a group: Morgan Bryan, Josie Deckinger, Connolly Webb, Brandon Henson, Anthony Schultz. They are presenting on the effects of visualization on skills acquisition. Their research is a study on visual imagery, improved performance in academics and athletics. Their faculty sponsor for this is Professor Jamie Coates. How do I make this big and start?
Our group researched and did a study on the effects of visualization on skill performance. And today there will be only 2 of us presenting. I am Josie Deckinger, and the other one presenting will be Morgan Bryan. So we each individually did our own research question and looked up some literature reviews over that research question. So the 2 we're going to focus on today are: how does visualization help increase attention concentration, and how does visualization help with pain management? So the purpose of our study was to analyze the effects of visualization on skill performance, and our hypothesis for our study was visualization will increase motor skills, strength, self-confidence, attention concentration, and pain management after a 6-week program.
This slide highlights the positive impact of visualization on skill performance, demonstrating that it can lead to advanced maximum performance benefits, better athletic academic performance, and serve as a useful tool for coaches, teachers, and athletes. The use of this visualization technique that we used is gaining increasing recognition in sports psychology as an effective method for enhancing performance. By engaging in a mental rehearsal and visualization, athletes can simulate and mentally prepare for high-pressure situations, improve their focus, confidence, and overall performance. This technique can also benefit athletes in academic settings, helping them to visualize success and overcome performance anxiety. By understanding and implementing the use of visualization, coaches, teachers, and athletes can improve performance and achieve maximum potential.
So this is one of the literature reviews that I did over how visualization affects on concentration. And so the mindfulness training argued that meditation techniques enhance mind practices. So these mind and body techniques reduce stress. So the athletes or people, if you visualize and use these techniques, your stress levels will actually go down, which then calms your brain down and helps you improve at the task at hand that you're doing. And if you participate in visualization, but you aren't in the right mindset and you aren't focused, then it'll actually decrease your results. So this is another article that I really loved. It talks about medical interns and how their testing could improve their learning skills using mannequins mentally instead of physical practice. And when you usually think about the medical field, you think of them more hands-on, but the results were that the physical and mental imagery techniques were about the same. So no matter if they thought about their techniques or if they physically did it, the results were about the same, which I thought was really interesting. The last article that I read was all about decision making and how it's a big confidence thing and not second guessing yourself, because if you second guess yourself, then you're throwing off your brain, you're thinking too much about it, and you really want visualization to become muscle memory, which in this article it stated that visualization, once you do it over and over again, it will become second nature and muscle memory to you.
This slide highlights the importance of visualization in managing stress and pain in athletes during high-pressure situations. When athletes are faced with stressful situations, their heart rates can increase, which leads to physical and mental tension that can negatively affect their performance. However, research shows that visualization can help athletes regulate their heart rate and control their stress levels. And by practicing these visualization techniques, athletes can mentally prepare for high-pressure situations and learn to remain calm and composed under pressure. Moreover, combining visualization with relaxing music before performance can enhance its effectiveness, as it helps to further prepare the brain for the upcoming event. By understanding the effects of visualization on skill performance and utilizing it with relaxing music, athletes can optimize their mental and physical state, leading to an improved performance and overall success.
Now we will be going over the methodology portion of our research. Moving into the rationale for our study, our athletes' visualization of skill performance can elevate their skill and mental state ability, but from the results from the test, we realized that this may change depending on the participants and the teams at Kansas Wesleyan University at the time and how they visualize their skill performance in their specific sport. So last year's team may not be the same as this year's team, as well as position-wise. So you might visualize your skill and your sport a little bit different than you did in years past or in the years to come. For this study, we had 24 participants that we used, and they were each split up into 3 different groups of 8 in each group. And all of these participants were collegiate athletes at the time, and their age ranged from 19 years old to 26 years old. These are some of the instruments that we used during our study, and some that I want to point out are SPSS, which we put all our data and any testing that we did into SPSS. And then we also used voice memo as our 6-week recording, which we'll get into in a little bit. And then for the paper plate, we drew a circle on the whiteboard for the target. And then we used the tape measure for distance of the participants to be 10 feet away from the target. And then we used the tennis ball as the ball to throw at the target. These are the procedures for our data collection. So first, we had to conduct a pilot study to see if there was anything we wanted to keep or change about our study. And we soon realized that we had too many questions that didn't have anything to do with our study or weren't getting the results that we wanted. So we took some questions out of our study. To continue on with our testing procedures, first we did a pre-test, and the participants took the before questionnaire, then they tested, listened to visualization techniques given by the research group, tested again, and then took the after questionnaire. And then we gave them a 6-week reporting and calendar the following week for them to listen to and record what days they listened to the recording. And then after the 6 weeks, we gave them a post-test to see if their skill performance increased or decreased, and then gave them the questionnaire after they tested. And then we put the questionnaire and the test results into the SPSS software. As mentioned before, we had a 6-week recording using voice memo, and we had 3 different groups of 8. So the first group listened to the recording every day for 6 weeks. The second group listened to the recording 3 times a week, and they would just log it on their calendar. And then the last group would never listen to the recording. For our ethical considerations, all of our participants were informed of the study that was being conducted, and they read our IRB form, and we informed them of the consent form. And then the testing was done anonymously, but the participants were numbered 1 through 24, so the researchers would know when we entered in the data who increased and who decreased.
The results of the dependent t-test indicate that one session of visualization did not have a significant effect on attention concentration. However, the results suggest that there is a relationship between visualization and increased attention concentration. as the participants who completed their 6-week visualization program showed improved attention concentration compared to their pretest scores. These findings suggest that consistent and long-term use of visualization techniques may be necessary to produce significant improvements in attention concentration. Just like attention concentration, the dependent t-test indicated that one session of visualization did not have a significant effect on self-confidence. However, the results suggested that there is a relationship between visualization and increased self-confidence, as participants who completed the 6-week visualization program showed improved confidence compared to their pretest scores. So this suggests that consistent and long-term use of visualization may be necessary to produce significant improvements in the self-confidence area. The results of the two-way ANOVA showed a significant relationship between visualization and an increase in motor skills. The average number of targets hit before visualization was compared to the number of targets hit after visualization, and the difference was found to be statistically significant. This suggests that visualization can be an effective tool for improving motor performance skills. This slide on comparing research highlights the importance of consistent practice of visualization techniques for improving self-confidence levels in athletes, especially when recovering from injuries. Research has shown that athletes who focus more on visualization and practice it consistently over a period of 6 weeks experience a significant improvement in their self-confidence levels compared to those who did not practice visualization. Furthermore, the study suggests that there was no significant difference in self-confidence levels between athletes who used visualization techniques once versus those who did not use it at all. These findings highlight the importance of incorporating visualization techniques into athletes' their training regimen and practicing them consistently to reap the benefits of improved self-confidence. By understanding the effects of visualization on self-confidence levels and the importance of consistent practice, coaches and athletes can work together to develop effective training programs and incorporate visualization techniques, leading to better performance outcomes. The research suggests that the literature review has shown that using visualization can be helpful for motor skills and can be successful for people mentally. The current research study also demonstrated that visualization was effective in helping people improve their motor skills, as more people hit the target after the 6-week visualization program. These findings provide support for the use of visualization in sports training and suggest that consistent practice and repetition of visualization techniques can lead to improved performance outcomes. Overall, a total of 24 students from Kansas Wesleyan University participated in the study, and those who listened to the video and visualized hitting the target had increased performance. This suggests that visualization can be a useful tool for improving sports performance, specifically in relation to the motor skills like targeting. The findings of this study could have important implications for athletes and coaches looking to enhance their performance outcomes and highlight the potential benefits of incorporating visualization into training and practice routines. This slide highlights the need for further investigation into the effects of visualization on motor skills and the differences in results based on gender. The post-test results showed that more people hit the target than expected, indicating that visualization may have a positive impact on motor skill performance. However, more research is needed to fully understand the relationship between visualization and motor skill performance, as well as the potential differences in results based on gender. Understanding these differences could help coaches and athletes tailor their training programs to optimize performance based on gender. Additionally, future research could explore the optimal frequency and duration of visualization practice for motor skill improvement, as well as the potential use of visualization in combination with other training methods to enhance overall performance outcomes. Overall, this slide highlights the importance of continued research in the field of visualization and its potential applications in sports performance. Do you have any questions?
Since they are not here, we will thank them in absentia.
Well, if you have questions, you can see me.
She will be glad to take questions for you. Our next presenter is Amanda Cheney. She's going to be presenting on her honors senior research project, Desiring the Monster, literary and examination analysis of noteworthy literary monsters and how they exert an attractive force on the viewer. Her faculty sponsor is Dr. Melissa Rohr. Amanda Cheney.
name is Amanda Cheney. As Dr. Meckley said, I'm going to be presenting on Monster's Desire, Why Are We Attracted to the Creature? So as my introduction, I completed this project as part of my honors program capstone project for the RTA honors program here at Kansas Wesleyan. I also chose to combine it with my fall 22 English 296 Borders and Crossings class. This year, it changes every year when this class is offered. It was themed around At the Borders of Monstrosity. I have wanted to take this class for so long, and so I was so glad that I was able to take it my senior year. In the class, we had 4 different sections discussing monsters or monstrous beings in literature, and the one that really caught my eye was monsters and desire. When I think of monsters originally, I thought the total opposite. I think they're gross, I think they're scary, I think they're creepy. And so it kind of intrigued me, and I wanted to challenge myself that way. I also am an education major, and so in education we have essential questions, as the professors in the room will know. My essential questions are, why do we desire or obsess over monsters in various literature or media, and what exactly is it that draws us in? So the form of literature, the piece of literature that I used to base my study around was by Jeffrey Jerome Cohen. It is titled Monster Theory, The 7 Theses. And in this thesis, he describes how monsters are fragmented beings, and the 7 theses that he uses are the unique but crucial parts of their existence. I focus on thesis 1 through 5. When I was coming up with my project, I wanted to choose an older and a newer form of a monster. So I figured vampires were one that everybody knew about, and there would be a lot of literature on it. And as a challenge, I chose to talk about Rocky Horror Picture Show, specifically Dr. Frankenfurter. Has everybody seen Rocky Horror? Yes? Okay, sweet. We're gonna be great then. So with vampires, old and new, I talked about thesis 2 and 3 together for vampires. The theses are the monster always escapes, and the monster is a harbinger of category crisis. These two combined basically say that as long as there is a point of fear or fascination in a culture or a society, there's always going to be a monster to manifest that fear or represent that fear. So with the gross, creepy, icky vampires that I talked about before, that fear is sickness and of the various plagues that spread around Europe as vampires originated from. Vampires are inspired by real diseases that have happened over the course of history. Rabies, a familiar one for everyone, I think, but porphyria, a common symptom of it is sensitivity to sunlight. That's where it comes into play with vampires. For the newer, Lord Byron-inspired, which I touch a lot more on in my full presentation, or the Edward Cullen from Twilight vampires, that fear shifts a little bit. Instead of sickness, we are now afraid of being blinded by attraction. And that attraction, that being blinded by it, brings in threatening, new, invasive values. And these exist in religion, society, sexuality. The charm and attraction distracts us from how deadly and dangerous these creatures really can be. Next, I talk about Rocky Horror Picture Show, and sounds like a lot of people have seen it. It's a cult classic film, and it explores the boundaries of masculinity to satisfy both the male and female gazes. I talk about Cohen's theses 1 through 5, and I could talk about it, I think, for about 10 years, so we're going to wrap it up and make it quick. For Rocky Horror, thesis number 1 basically says that a monster doesn't understand that it's a monster until someone, an individual person, a group, a culture, a society, tells it that it's a monster. Dr. Frankenfurter, in Dr. Frankenfurter's case, his entire castle of Transylvanians had to turn against him. Everyone in the movie before he realized, maybe I'm the problem. For thesis 2 and 3, again, if there's a fascination or a fear, a monster will exist and it'll keep reappearing as that fear exists. Concepts, fear or fascination. Concepts of gender and sexuality are ever changing in every society. And so we always search for something to relate them back to, and Dr. Frankenfurter is a perfect example. Look at him there. Number 4 and number 5 are on this slide. Number 4 highlights the differences between humans and monsters on a bunch of different levels. For the physical level, Dr. Frankenfurter appears both masculine and feminine. He is totally outside of our traditional norm. He's this really intimidating force. He's large, he's looming, and he wears a corset top. He wears fishnets, paints his face, the pearls. He is totally ambiguous. He's the total representation of ambiguity and just a total contradiction on himself. For cultural, sexual, political, Dr. Frankenfurter's overt sexuality and queerness throughout the movie challenges those more traditional or conservative ideals. Number 5, the monster polices the border between the known and unknown. Dr. Frankenfurter kind of flips this on its head, and he invites people into the unknown. He invites people into his difference and traps them in his capsule. Traps them in their difference. In Cohen's thesis number 5, he directly says that monsters are transgressive too, sexual, perversely erotic, a lawbreaker, and so the monster and all it embodies must be exiled and destroyed. For Dr. Frank, that's a laser gun when he falls into the pool at the end of the movie. Rest in peace. To kind of wrap everything up, I have actually been accepted into Fort Hays State University's graduate school, where I will be pursuing my Master's of English Literature. I'll be doing this at the same time as my first year teaching at Hoxie High School in the fall. Everybody say a prayer for me. To develop my research further with this, I would love to study monster literature just in general more. It's absolutely fascinating to me. The first time we see monster literature really become a thing is in the 19th century with Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. KWU is a loose adaptation of Frankenstein, and so I would love to study the genre even more. It's evolved immensely over time. For film theory with KWU specifically, I have a couple of ways that I could go. For feminist film theory, I would want to investigate how women and femininity and also men and masculinity are represented and kind of taken advantage of in the film. For linguistic film theory, I would want to study the aesthetics, concepts, and practices that make up the interpretation of the film. Dr. Meckley was so kind to remind me before I came in for this presentation that when I was first coming up with the idea, I also thought to include another monster, zombies, using R from the movie Warm Bodies. So studying a whole new monster specifically with this in mind would be another really fun thing for me to do. Here's the list of my sources that I used. Thank you. If you have any questions, I would love to answer
What kind of questions do you have for me?
If there's not any right now, I'll be in the lobby and I'll answer them after.
Hearing none, she will be in the lobby afterwards. She'll answer any questions you might want to ask. Our next presenter is Avery DeWalt. She is going to be presenting on Generation Z and self-socialization. She's going to examine the connection between media consumption, adolescent socialization, and development. Her faculty sponsor for this is Dr. Steve Oakstrand? Dr. Andrew Bedros, yes. Avery DeWalt.
Thank you, Dr. Meckley, for that introduction. Once again, I'm Avery DeWalt. I am a senior here at Kansas Wesleyan University, and I'm majoring in social work and sociology. After graduation, I'm planning to go to Boston College to earn my master's degree in clinical social work and eventually work as a therapist with children and adolescents. So that is one of the main reasons why I chose to study Generation Z. So the purpose of my research was to investigate whether the media consumed has an impact on the development through adulthood, as well as that influence their expectations of what adult life is going to be. And my hypothesis for this research was that the media consumed between the ages of 10 through 17 does influence the social and emotional factors within the socialization process, as well as influences their beliefs about adulthood. Okay, so some background on this topic. I think everyone understands that the way that we consume media has arguably changed over time between my generations, my parents' generations. We have a lot more opportunities to consume media, whether we recognize it as that or not. Additionally, there's more TVs in homes now more than ever. The mobile device, the portable gaming consoles, this has all provided adolescents more opportunities to consume media. So some defining factors of Generation Z, majority of them were born into a post 9/11 America. as well as their childhood was through the 2008 financial crisis. I hope you guys are doing okay. I know a lot of y'all lived through that. So also school shootings and school safety was a big topic through their education as well. And then of course the COVID-19 pandemic. So the content of media used to cope with these harsh realities arguably has an impact on their media habits. So self-socialization, what does that mean? It is a part of the title of my study. So to put it into a definition, it's when an individual is able to reflect on and self-formulate a vision for the future self, as well as set goals and take actions that create or alter the developmental trajectory. So to put that in basic terms, it's when an adolescent has a self-interest in what is going on through their developmental process. So if we look at media as a socialization agent, the use of personalized algorithms, adolescents now have the ability to kind of control how they are being influenced and what they're consuming. And that arguably has a way of shaping their beliefs, their values, and their perceptions about the world. Additionally, if we look at socialization agents, parents are one of the biggest influences on children. And once that child reaches adolescence, that influence from parents is now decreasing. And now they're a lot more independent, they're doing a lot more things separate from the caregiver's control, and this allows adolescents the ability to self-socialize. So for the sake of time, I'm going to kind of skim through this literature review, but I studied the self-socialization of adolescents as well as who are the stakeholders in this process, as well as I looked at content versus consumption and the reasons for consuming media. Okay. So the purpose of my research was to expand what's already been done as well as connect the different media types and how they have affected adolescent development with special attention to the social and emotional factors. So for this study, I surveyed 144 college-age participants between the ages of 18 through 25 about the media that they consume through adolescence. This was a descriptive and quantitative study, and I used statistical analysis with the SPSS software that Josie's group talked about a few presentations ago to determine which variables influence the socialization process for adolescents. This was a really big study. I had 88 questions on this questionnaire and over 100 variables, so it was quite a lot. And the media that I studied was television, video games, music, and social media. So some general analysis from the study. So 3.2 of the variance in sexual attitudes was explained by how much sexual content was consumed while watching television. So basically, the more sex you watch on TV, the more that's going to influence your attitudes about sex. And then here are the tests for that. I did a regression, so you would look at the adjusted R-squared value down at the bottom. For video games, I did a correlation with gender and the different types of content within those video games, looking at sexual content, gore content, and violent content. And it turns out that men consume more video games with sexual, gore, and violent content than women. For music, I looked at how sexual lyrical content influenced sexual attitudes, as well as lyrical content about substance use and how that influences substance use experiences, and both of those were statistically significant with 6.9% for sexual attitudes and 7.2% for substance use. Here we go, and here's the regressions for that. So right now I'm conducting a study with parents over Generation Z, and it turns out a lot of parents were not aware when their child created their first social media account, which is a little bit alarming. They don't remember their kid ever coming and asking for permission to create an account. But the average age for making a social media account was 12. The percentage of men, a higher percentage of men reported having their social media supervised than women, and also women tended to feel more pressure to kind of uphold these social media trends, as well as they tended to compare their lives more to others when on social media as well. White adolescents reported having more supervision over their social media as well, more than racial minorities, with 48.8% versus 29.4%. And then those are the correlations for the previous statistics. This was one of my favorite things that I found out through the analysis of the data. So basically I did a regression to investigate how well comparing your life to others predicts your disappointment in reality. And the results were statistically significant, which indicates that 22.9% of the variance in disappointment of reality was explained by how much you compare your life to others on social media. These were kind of the foundation of my research. These, I call them the big dogs, if you will. So I looked at substance use in each media type with whether that influenced or correlated with your experimentation with drugs and alcohol. And it was statistically significant with substance use in music correlating with experimenting with drugs and alcohol, as well as substance use on social media with correlating with experimentation with drugs and alcohol. Then I looked at explicit language in all the media types and whether that influenced whether that adult now uses explicit language, and it was statistically correlated with explicit language in music as well as explicit language on social media. Next, I did violence in each media type and whether they had been in a physical altercation. And violence in video games is correlated with being in a physical altercation as well as violence on social media. And then finally, I did sexual content in each media type and whether that an adolescent had viewed pornography, and it was statistically significant with sexual content in video games and viewing pornography, as well as sexual content on social media and viewing pornography. So just some overall findings, 42.7% of the respondents agree that watching television created unrealistic expectations for adulthood, and 41.9% of the respondents agree that being active on social media has influenced their social and emotional development through adolescence. These are some weaknesses of my study, of course, the sample size. Again, these studies are based on self-reporting, and typically with these studies, people kind of think that they're better off than they actually are. So a little bit of, some of that denying what happened. Okay, so in conclusion, media consumption has transformed culture and is influencing adolescent development in ways that we really haven't seen before. And we must be aware of these consequences as the development of our future depends on it. That is all. Thank you.
I do have a question. You might have said this, but is this what you want to continue working on at Boston College?
I am going into clinical social work, so I don't think that there will be opportunities for me to continue this type of research. However, I think it was good for me to do this so I understand how their development has been impacted by the media they consume.
Okay. Any other questions for Avery? She too will be in the lobby afterward if you want to bring up any more discussions with her. Trey Duffy and Kennedy Rader will be presenting on regenerative versus organic farming. This has been a partnership between JRI Farming and the Community Resilience Hub. Yikes. The Community Resilience Hub to develop a plan for research and marketing for the farming initiative. The faculty sponsor for this has been Professor Michelle Case.
Good morning. So a little intro about us. My name is Trey Duffy. I just am a recent alumni of Kansas Wesleyan, graduated my bachelor's in sports management and business management, and now I'm the graduate assistant for external relations in the alumni and the advancement office. And so, and I'm now working on my MBA.
My name is Kennedy Rader. I'm a senior, majoring in public relations and communications, and hopefully graduate in a couple of weeks and trying to pursue my master's here.
So you may be wondering, farming, business majors, how does that all connect? So we came from a class called Business Communications, and our professor, Dr. Case, talked to us about the idea of like maybe doing this as a class project because as we were supposed to like come up with businesses and develop like a business plan for them. So she pitched this idea from JRI, and at first I was like, whoa, like I don't really know much about farming. And I looked at Ken and I was like, do you have much knowledge about farming?
No, sir.
And so it was really a challenge for us to do research about what is organic farming, what is regenerative farming. Like I have no background, he has no background. And so that's kind of the basis of our research. So we come up with a name for the JRI's farm. So JRI actually is a 600-acre farm that they're trying to figure out what are we going to do with it. And so we came up with the name Kansas Farm and Ranch, and that's our slogan, the next evolution of farming. And today we're going to talk about some of our research.
So to start with what we know, right? So like you said, we got presented with this topic for our project, and like you said, it's a very foreign subject. Kansas City, Topeka, not really familiar with farming, so I thought it was very interesting to dive into just a complete foreign topic. And so what we really knew is that the cover crops that they wanted to plant were cereal rye, radishes, turnips. The crops to start with, rye, beans, and in the future to pursue wheat, milo, and beans. Animals, currently none for now, but in the near future, chickens, cows, pigs, sheep, and alpacas. Other important notes, electric fencing is being put around the property. No name or mission statement for the farm as of now, and it has not been sprayed or tilled for 3 years. The purpose for this assignment is that JRI came to us to do some basic research on comparing organic farming and regenerative farming, right? So the purpose for this farm is to resell the livestock, grow local food for the local people in Salina, community of Salina, and provide food to JRI-owned restaurants. What we needed to know, based off this research, is we came up with a market analysis of organic and regenerative farms and conduct research to develop a menu of options, directions the property can go, and then develop a business plan for the farm.
So here are some different options that we were thinking about for the 600 acres. So they could go fully organic. So that means no tillage, no chemicals. And it's very, very strict rules. And so they could go fully organic or they can go regenerative. And regenerative really doesn't have a definition. You know, depending on who you talk to, I mean, the definitions go crazy. I mean, there's a lot of different ways that people describe it. And so, but it's a really new topic. They can do a mix of both. We also discovered a new type of farming called biodynamic farming. We really won't talk about that much because JRI is not going towards that direction. And then we have some extra ideas because most farmers that I talk to, 600 acres is a lot. They really focus sometimes on 2 acres to 100 acres. And so we were trying to also propose a couple ideas in our research of what else can they do with that 600 acres.
So in the startup process of starting a new regenerative farm, there's 3 essential things that must be done, right? So soil testing is number 1. Regenerative farming is totally based on soil health. Soil health is the number 1 center of focus here, and getting your soil professionally tested can help identify deficiencies in the land, troubleshoot problem areas, and it can even demonstrate progress over time of how successful is your regenerative farm being right now. 2, why are cover crops important? So after the main crop, regenerative farmers usually put down cover crops such as legumes like rye, barley, and clover. And then 3, diversifying your crops is important because you need to know what you want to grow, right? And diversifying all those different crops is important because there's a lot that you can do with regenerative farming.
So as our research went on, we kind of laid out, okay, organic, regenerative, and so why would they go organic? Why would they go regenerative? So a few things why they would go organic is it's profitable. There is a market for it. They use no toxic chemicals of any kind, and it's really, really, really good food. And you can actually trace from all, you have to really lock down like, okay, this is what I did, and so you can really trace like where your food came from, and people love hearing that type of information.
Why go regenerative? Well, there's plenty of things, as you can see, but regenerative is the future here. So that's really the number 1 focus on why to go regenerative. It is the future here. It is super beneficial for the ecosystem, the soil health, like I said earlier, and it's very profitable while improving the land as well.
So, but with the positives come the challenges as well. So with organic, I know this kind of seems off-putting right now, but some of these kind of weigh the same as like a few of these as well. So don't let that alarm you right now. But some of the challenges of it is like if there is like a pesticide or if like an animal comes through, it can wipe out your entire crop because you can't use any like chemicals to eliminate that. So that's one thing that can be really bad. Food can go moldy really quickly. There is a small clientele for organic livestock as well, and so those are just a few challenges for organic farms.
Challenges of regenerative farming. So like Trey said, there is no real legal meaning. It's a broad definition of regenerative farming. There's a lot of ways you can go, and really no one has a dictionary definition of regenerative farming. You have to find your own buyers and develop your own marketplace. It's very hard, it's new. So that's why it would be kind of difficult in doing that, but there's a lot of positives compared to the challenges, so it is beneficial.
So that leads us into our next thing, cover crops. So there's a variety of different cover crops that you can use: wheat, rye, sorghum, triticale. I think sometimes my pronunciation is not great, so my apologies on that. So why use cover crops? It's an alternative for tillage and it acts as a fertilizer. So cereal, rye, and turnips and radishes are really focused on that, is because JRI wants to implement that in the future. And so these kind of describe, like, okay, why is cereal rye great? Why is turnip and radishes great? And then we also propose the idea of using legumes such as clovers, alfalfas, winter peas, because they really fix nitrogen in the air and put it in the soil so then they can't escape it. So that really helps with like soil growth and the roots of the plants. So, and that's a little bit about cover crops.
Soil testing. So this is very interesting. The Haney test is the most efficient test on soil testing, and Trey actually spoke to her.
I had to Zoom call with her for about half hour. Very knowledgeable lady.
One of the 26 people that we contacted in this research assignment, but to get into it, measures pH, optimal growth, organic matter, nutrients that can be extracted. Basically, what I went through earlier, it will identify the deficiencies in the soil. There's laboratories for nutrient testing, as you see Regen Agriculture Labs in Nebraska. And there's other tests that you can do as well, the PLFA test, which tests for microbes in the soils, and then K-State Extension University, you can also get that information as well.
There's a lot of different options for you to test your soil. And that leads us into testing water. If you go organic, you really can't have a lot of runoff water. And so testing water is really key for growing plants as well. So there's a lot of different options. You can do that. You can do SDK Labs in Hutchinson. You can do K-State Research and Extension. And then you can also send it to the local county health department. So those are just a few options for testing water. And then as far as vegetables that people want to grow, these are the vegetables that are high demand. Like if people want to make a profit, like JRI really wants to make a profit. And anybody knows Jason Egermanson, he really wants to make money. He wants to make money fast. And so we told him, they're like, look, tomatoes, cucumbers, kale, peppers, onions, like these are some of the vegetables that are in high demand according to farmers across the state in the Midwest. So our idea for the property at the end of our research, which was we talked for like an hour long, so we're not going to put you through that. But our idea was, all right, we need to find out if there's any documentation for the farm. As of now, we didn't know if there's any documentation, if they've tracked, okay, has the land been tilled? Have they been sprayed with chemicals? So we need that documentation to start.
Once we get the documentation, if we have it, the first step is to go organic. And then 3.
Yeah, get the soil tested. Well, we need to figure out if they want to go organic or not, because if they want to go organic, we need the documentation like ASAP. And then we get the soil tested.
Buy more equipment, products, seeds, cover crops such as legume.
We start practicing soil health practices and organic procedures if they want to go organic.
Make sure the soil health is great and healthy, very important in this process.
And then we sit down with them and make sure, hey, is this where we want to go organic? Personally, we would not want to because, again, JR wants to make money quick. And so you have to go through all those steps to get organic, and it sometimes takes about 3 years. So we're like, all right, let's go regenerative, and let's start making money right away. And so, and then,
You're good. Start with 50 acres of organic and 50 acres of regenerative. So they're not the same. There is little differences in between, but starting with 50 of organic and 50 of regenerative can be.
And then from there, after they get that settled, we want to see which one do they like the most.
And we use cover crops, build high tunnels, and use hugelculture,
which is a thing that we had in our research. We won't talk about that today. And then we'll start beginning to build grain storages and other storages. We need to store our crops once we build them, so that's a very, very important thing.
And then lastly, think about transportation. Start contract negotiating, market searches, and start thinking about the other 500 acres in the future and what we would like to do with it.
And with that concludes our presentation. So any questions?
Are you doing any observations or learning in connection with the Land Institute?
You know, we knew a lot about the Land Institute, and I know we did contact a few people from the Land Institute, so they gave us some great information, but we know the Land Institute's been a really, really great organization that's helped with that. And then obviously Kansas Wesleyan has partnered with Rodell as well, and they were huge with that as well. We contacted people from there, and they were actually there for our final presentation. So yes, we're very familiar with that. Yes?
And I can imagine in this that this can overlap with traditional multi-cropping.
Yeah, there's parts of it, but again, and then trying to convince farmers to go away from that is a challenge. And we know that, but again, like we said, this is like the future of farming. People really care about where their crops are coming from.
Yeah.
And so if we can start getting those farmers that go away from that, and I know that's the traditional way, it's been like that for,
That sounds like a misunderstanding of the word multi-cropping, but where you're growing multiple crops on the same ground at the same time.
Yeah. Oh wait. So what? Sorry. What's your question again with that? So with multi-cropping, how does that involve with our farming?
Yeah.
Okay. So we diversify a lot of crops because again, it's good for the soil health, and and depending on the season, some crops grow better in different seasons. Like the wet season, the hot season as well. And so that's why it's really important to diversify crops. And so a lot of farmers do it. And so then they can also sell to a lot of markets, because then if something happens to one crop, then their entire crop's wiped out. And so having that diversification is really good.
Well, but my question has to do with growing multiple crops on the same land simultaneously. So for example, in old traditional stuff like Native American, things like corn, beans, and squash on the same field at the same time.
How does that happen?
Does that?
Yeah, so
Does any of that involve
I
what you're looking at?
I talked to some farmers, and they have it a strict layout of how they're going to do it. And so with the cover crops that go really well with those plants, and so it has been. I asked the same questions actually when I was talking to a lot of people, and they lay it out so well where the cover crops go so well with those specific plants that they sell, and then it works. It works. So I totally get where your question is coming from. So, any other questions? Oh, yes.
Do they have a plan to have maybe a greenhouse to do some winter farming?
That's a great question. But we haven't really been updated with what JRI is doing right now. But I think in the future, I think that's a really good option for them to do. But as of now, we really don't know if they're investing in a greenhouse or not. We proposed that idea. We had a list of, in our hour-long presentation, we had a list of different options they could have done. So, yes. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Our last presenter for the day cannot be here. It is Audrey Sinan. She's going to be presenting on college students' beliefs and attitudes toward hookup culture. She wants to examine the connection of self-esteem, impulse behaviors, hookup motives, and she is able to present electronically. Audrey Sinan.
Hello everyone, my name is Audrey Sinan, and I'm a first semester senior here at Kansas Wesleyan University. I major in social work and minoring in psychology and sociology.
The televisions are not on the screen.
Yeah, just need to drag it over to the other side.
And I'm very honored to be able
Thank you, guys.
to present my research at KWU. And I apologize that I'm not able to make it there. But with that being said, my research is exploring college students' beliefs and attitudes towards culture and how it affects one's self-esteem and impulsive decision-making process. Hookups or uncommitted sex have become more and more popular among college campuses, where us college students are the main contributors to the bullying crisis. From dating apps to parties to media to even the lingo we use, the culture that hooking up has created has entirely shifted the traditional dating process and has produced detrimental psychological and physical effects. I was just interested in this topic because I didn't know much about hookup culture, especially since there's this huge stigma surrounding sex. So I wanted to learn more about it and how it affects college students outside of the bedroom as well. So before I dive into my research, I wanted to provide everyone with a baseline definition of hooking up that kind of guided the questions I asked and how I analyzed the results. But hooking up is defined as physically intimate consensual behaviors ranging from kissing to sexual intercourse with someone who you do not have a committed romantic relationship. The purpose of my study was to assess if there was a difference between single or taken men and women's opinions towards hookup approval, frequency, and overall takeaways. I personally hypothesized that college students who clearly partook in hookup culture would have lower self-esteem and higher impulsive behaviors relative to those who do not partake or not as often in hookup culture. A total of 136 completed surveys were analyzed. The participants completed the survey through a Google form, and I also had the help from a few professors who sent my survey out to their classes with the motivation of receiving extra credit. I had fairly even numbers across the board in all categories. The age ranged from 18 to 38-year-olds, with the mean age of 20. Grade level was fairly even, excluding the master's education. When it comes to gender, it was almost split down the middle with 44% male, 54% female. Sexual orientation was predominantly heterosexual, and with the relationship status, 64% individuals were single, while 36% of individuals were in a romantic relationship. Approval, frequency, and effects of hooking up were measured by 6 questions that I made up myself. For the motives for hooking up scale, Rosenberg self-esteem scale, and the impulsive behavior scale, respondents were provided with a list of statements and were asked to rate each item on various Likert scales, and some items were reverse coded as I was analyzing the results. And then demographics were also used to classify the respondents in various categories. Okay, now we're at the results. So for hooking up approval, almost half of the participants were neutral / unsure on how they felt about it, with more approving than disapproving. With the factors leading to a hookup, 87.1% said that it was from flirting / attraction, with the least amount being planned ahead of time at 35.6%. A notable factor was 70.5% said that it was from drinking alcohol / using drugs, which can correlate with sexual regret, which I will kind of get into in my discussion. With emotions following a hookup, the number one emotion was regretful and disappointed, with the least amount at 2.4% being proud after a hookup. For my Pearson correlations, frequent hooking up had a strong positive correlation with negative urgency, lack of premeditation, positive urgency, overall impulsive behavior, social relationship, enhancement, coping, and approval of hooking up. Low self-esteem was directly correlated with lack of perseverance, positive urgency, social relationship, and coping. Here are my Pearson correlations a little bit more in detail, but overall the reliability was strong at both 0.01 and 0.05 level, and lots of asterisks all over the place. While interpreting the result, the impulsive behavior scale had a Compbox alpha lower than 0.600. However, it did not affect the overall reliability of the scale, so I did not choose to take any of those subscales down. Continuing on a little bit more, independent measures, t-tests were calculated to compare the variables by gender. Between males and females, there were no significant differences in self-esteem, lack of perseverance, lack of premeditation, overall self-control, social relationship, coping, conformity, approval of hooking up, and frequency of hooking up. This statistic surprised me personally because I thought women would have lower self-esteem levels and lower frequency of hooking up. However, I was proved wrong. When it comes to the differences, men tend to hook up under extreme negative emotions, tend to seek out novel and thrilling experiences through hookups, tend to hook up for their own sexual benefits, and tend to hook up to increase their overall well-being. On the other hand, women tend to hook up under extreme positive emotions. An interesting finding was the amount of individuals in a romantic committed relationship who hooked up. It is unknown if the participants were reflecting on their past when they were actively single and partaking in hookups, or if participants openly admitted to cheating on their significant other. I remember analyzing these results with Dr. Hofstra, and we found this, and we just can't say what the reasons were. Here's a pie chart of the hooking up frequency. As you can tell, it's fairly split down the middle, with 43.4% never hooking up, with the rest varying frequency. Yellow and gray represent 1.5%. I was unable to add it onto the pie chart. And here are the negative and positive effects following a hookup. Negative is being represented by the light blue, and then positive is being represented by the dark blue. The number one negative effect was guilt/regret, while the number one positive effect was its complementary emotion, which was experience. All right, now we're at my discussion. The results of the present study appear to partially support the hypothesis by showing association between hooking up frequency and high-risk taking impulsive behavior. On the contrary, self-esteem was not entirely affected by frequency of hooking up, nor showed a difference between genders. Instead, low self-esteem levels were rather a reflection of individuals' insecurities, and there were notable differences in men and women's motives for hooking up and overall self-control. The limitations of my study were the order of questions for my motives of hooking up scale. They corresponded with the subscales. So while analyzing the results, the Convox alpha increased for each subscale, and it's unknown if the participants caught on to the coding pattern or not. In addition, the sample sizes of non-heterosexuals were small, so the results had to be interpreted with caution and couldn't be drawn to a larger population. For further research, I would like to know more about the presence of alcohol and drugs in the decision-making process leading to hookup, especially on D1 campuses, and how it correlates to sexual assault and rape, and how the media plays a role in one's perception of culture, such as absorbing R-rated content, pornography, and vulgar language. So in conclusion, although hookups have become more socially acceptable, it may leave more damaging strings attached than the public would like us to believe. And that's why it's so important for us to promote protective and healthy sexual behaviors for college students so that they don't fall into the harmful ways of culture. Here are my references, and thank you very much for listening.
In the interest of time, we are going to wind up today. What I'm going to do is this, a couple of things. One, if you are interested in seeing the original documented papers on these presentations, I have put them on these chairs right up here. You can take a look at them if you so desire. I would ask our presenters to hang around here for a while afterward. Once a teacher, always a teacher. Class, what I need you to do is come on down, and I want you to thank the presenters, tell them one thing you learned today. Got your assignment? All right, presenters, if you would stay for a while. Again, make sure you thank these people for their time and their attention. Again, best of KWU, people.